One of the things that Christ mentioned as he was describing signs of the times to the disciples was in Matthew chapter 24, beginning in verse 7. Matthew 24, verse 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Notice carefully now. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Now, verse 8 tells us that all these are the beginning of sorrows. And verse 7 describes the wars and rumors of wars and calamities and pestilences. In other words, what Jesus says in verse 9 here, they're going to blame God's people for these things, these calamities, these wars. As he says again, then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And as we looked at last time, this war that is going on right now with the US and Iran, who is really behind this? What is really the agenda? How will that affect God's people? Well, keep in mind, these men are only players in the hand of the papacy. And the papacy is a player in the hand of Satan himself. Notice carefully what Revelation chapter 17 verse 13 tells us. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These have one mind. And as we see these players acting up and going after one another, which is really the thesis versus antithesis. They have created a crisis, and they have created this crisis, making it seem like they are fighting with one another, but in the end is really the agenda of the papacy, according to Revelation chapter 13, that is being pushed here so that they can call for a synthesis. And I'm going to show you that is exactly what this is leading to. Notice, and when the Bible tells us that these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast, that is, they will agree, that is by consent, so that they may conspire with the beast against God's people. That is really the agenda. Now, this war that Donald Trump is engaged in with Iran came in the middle of Donald Trump impeachment. You know, the Bible tells us there is absolutely nothing new under the sun, and that is true. Notice carefully this video here.
Tonight, Iran doubling down on threats of retaliation against the U.S. after the killing of a top general. What's next as thousands of U.S. troops head to the Middle East? Plus, the impeachment of President Trump at a standstill. You
notice that it says that the impeachment of Donald Trump is delayed. It is at a standstill. Does that sound familiar? Again, it goes back to what Solomon tells us. There's absolutely nothing new under the sun. Notice carefully with me. Parallels between now and 1998 Iraq airstrike from MSNBC, January 3rd, 2020. Notice, in December 1998, the New York Times ran a cover story on the delay of the impeachment. What's the word? Delay of the impeachment vote on Bill Clinton due to Clinton's launch of an Iraq airstrike. And you notice on the New York Times magazines, the headline says, impeachment vote in House delayed as Clinton launches Iraq airstrike, citing military need to move swiftly. Does this sound familiar? Notice carefully this video here.
We want to show you this New York Times headline from December 17th, 1998, looking eerily similar to what we are waking up to today. It reads, impeachment vote in House delayed as Clinton launches Iraq airstrikes, citing military need to move swiftly. According to the Times, then President Clinton launched the offensive on Iraq just minutes before House Republicans began their closed-door strategy session to discuss the impeachment vote.
Then we go to Business Insider, January 3rd, 2020. Like Trump, Clinton also launched an Iraq airstrike as his impeachment inquiry was heating up. And the question is, as a result of engaging in this war with Iraq, where did the impeachment go? Did he get really impeached by both the Senate and the House? No. Notice carefully. Lesson learned. Do not impeach a sitting president of the United States of America. A country will be chosen and what else? And attacked. Bill Clinton impeached and next moment airstrikes against Iraq. Donald Trump impeached and next moment what happened? A high profile Iranian get assassinated. And soon and very soon, as we just read in Revelation chapter 17, these have one mind and shall give their strength and power unto the beast. And also Matthew chapter 24, as a result of the wars and calamities, they will do what? They shall deliver God's people and afflict them and persecute them and really kill them. That is what Christ prophesied. Notice from Twitter, it says, history doesn't always repeat itself, but it often rhymes. In 1998, Bill Clinton attacked Iraq while delaying his impeachment process and eventually escaped it. Trump is doing the what? The same. Again, they posted that same article from the New York Times. Nothing new under the sun. This is about control, to give their power and strength unto the beast. And as we looked at last time, this headline here from Patheos, January 4th, 2020, Trump tells evangelicals God is on our side while promising to put prayer in schools. This movement from the evangelicals, those so-called religious leaders that are the advisors of Donald Trump, they are the ones engaging in this, what they call holy war, dreams of theocracy. President Trump rallied evangelical supporters in Miami on Friday. And what's the dream? It's a dream of theocracy. Skip on down. Trump promotes what? Christian theocracy while claiming that we have God on our side and promising to put prayer in public schools. And where again? This is going to lead us. This system of theocracy, which cannot be, as we read, as we were told, there cannot be another theocracy in this world until Jesus comes again and restore all things and make all things new. Where is this leading? This system of theocracy, which is the same thing that Constantine tried to do and did do, which gave way, which helped the papacy to come into power, which was represented by the pale horse of Revelation chapter 6. And we know what happened during that time. For the 1260 years, God's people were persecuted and murdered. Notice now the establishment of a man-made or a woman-made theocracy will be but a repetition of the establishment and working of the hideous principles of who? Of the papacy, if not the establishment of the papacy itself. In this country, the papacy is a theocracy. Its workings throughout history have been but the practice of the principles of a man-made theocracy, such a theocracy as the Women's Christian Temperance Union proposes to establish here by the ballot. The rule of such a theocracy is the wickedest rule that the world has known or can know. And that is exactly part of what this war is about. Now let me share this article with you. Notice from Cook's Magazine, January 5th, 2020. Forget the Swiss. How about the Vatican to broker U.S.-Iran what? Relationships. So you have the thesis again versus the antithesis. And who's coming in the middle? The synthesis. That is the papacy. Notice, famously, the United States and Iran haven't had diplomatic relations since they were cut off in 1980 amid the hostage crisis. Officially, the two countries communicate through the Swiss embassy in Tehran, and Swiss officials were dutifully summoned Friday to hear Iran's protests of the killing of General Qasem Soleimani, describing it as a blatant example of American state terrorism. Notice carefully. Then it says, given that Washington and Tehran are unlikely to restore direct ties right now, and that communication between the two sides is nonetheless essential if a regional conflagration is to be prevented. The question arises as to which player on the global stage is best positioned to broker a dialogue that might allow cooler heads to prevail. And I wonder who this power might be that can come between the two and help this to actually take place. Notice carefully with me. As counterintuitive as it may seem, there's a case to be made that the Vatican might be a good choice. To begin with, the Vatican's diplomatic relationship with Iran dates to 1954, a full 3 decades before formal ties with the US were launched under President Ronald Reagan in 1984. Post-revolutionary Iranian leaders have been especially anxious to trumpet their entry in the Vatican as a way of counteracting Washington's efforts to depict Iran as a pariah state. Iran currently has more, notice, diplomats accredited to the Vatican than any country in the world other than Dominican Republic, which is a clear sign of how seriously they take the relationship with whom? With the Vatican. Now, the article also went on to tell us the reason why Iran has such a diplomacy or relationship with the Vatican is because they have so many things, spiritually speaking, in common, like their clerics. Notice, there are a number of U.S. Catholic leaders with influence in the Trump administration. In any event, given that Islamic societies historically have seen the Vatican as the what? As the chaplain of the West, the impression that Francis isn't in the bag for the White House could actually be an asset in this situation. So you have within the Trump administration a huge Catholic influence. This reminds me of what Sister White tells us, that the teachings, the principles of the Roman Catholicism will be taken under the care of the states. And again, these have one mind and shall give their strength and power unto the beast. Notice, article goes on to say, finally, there is an underlying reason why the Vatican can engage Tehran in a way that the Swiss or other diplomatic players simply can't. And it can be expressed in one word. What's that word? God. At the leadership level, Iran is a what? Theocracy. And even if it's certainly adept at hard-nosed real politic, the thought world of its leadership class is nevertheless suffused with religious concepts and vocabulary. The Vatican is the lone serious global power. The Vatican is what? The lone serious global power that can engage Iran at that level and be taken seriously. Catholicism and the Shia strain of Islam that dominates Iran enjoy a natural what? Kingship. They have the same attributes of the Roman Catholicism. They are a theocracy, just like the Pope of Rome is a theocratic nation. Well, that tiny nation there, Vatican, is a theocracy. That means church and state combined together. Notice, article goes on to say, there would seem to be a moment right now in which creative papal leadership could be crucial It may not be the start to 2020 Francis quite envisioned, but for better or worse, it's the hand he's been dealt. That means everybody must go to Rome as the synthesis. And what will they call next? What will the Pope ask these nations to do as well in exchange? To legislate a Sunday law, just like the Bible tells us. These have one mind and shall give their strength and power unto the beast. That means at the same time, God's people have been commended in the same chapter of Matthew chapter 24, as I mentioned before, as Jesus mentioned, verse 14, this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached unto all the world as a witness, then shall the end come. God bless you.